want to welcome everybody tonight. My name is Dr. Timothy Gallagher. I'm here with our medical director, Dr. Michael Marciello, and two-time world champion, 1981 MVP, Boston Celtics legendary Cedric Maxwell, along with Nick Gelso from CLNS Media. And we're so excited to be with you tonight, Max. This is fantastic. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight, because I know for myself, growing up in Massachusetts, particularly as a teenager, I was a huge fan, Max. I mean, the heyday of the 80s with the Boston Celtics, and, you know, you coming in with the legendary Larry Bird, Robert Parish, Tiny Archibald, and Kevin Mchale. And that was just incredible for everybody here in New England to kind of go through that. So again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This is fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. I got on my Celtic t-shirt, the starting five. They were all men of color, and you can see Satch's name in there, Bill Russell's numbers in there. For everyone who's joining us tonight, you're not only going to get an education in basketball, but you're going to get an education in therapy. And these guys that you're talking to now are the best. Dr. Tim, Dr. Mike, they do a wonderful job of connecting those hip bones to the ankle bones, to the knee bones, and everything starts to work again. And I've been one of these guys for a long period of time since I stopped playing. I've had arthritis in my knees, and these gentlemen have gone on and done a procedure with me, which was very similar to what Kemba Walker had, of injecting into the knee and almost a growth hormone. And no, don't look for me back on the court, but look for me to be, walking without a limp. These guys have done a wonderful job of educating me about the process and where we'd go and what it would feel like. And I had one procedure probably about 2.5 months ago. And then I just had the last procedure a couple of days ago. And, I am walking around. I'm feeling good right now. If I had some wood, I'd knock on it, but knock on wood. Both knees, actually, from the time I started in 77 with the Celtics until 85 with the Celtics, I started to have some knee difficulties. And I wish these guys had been around during that time. Dr. Tim tells me, and I tell me that, my longevity, my playing career would have been even longer and possibly even better with their therapy. I hurt my knee in the last one, actually hurt it in 85, playing against just a little bit before playing the Lakers, and couldn't get back on the court. But these gentlemen almost assured me that I'd have been kind of like Kemba Walker, and we're watching Kemba right now. And Kemba he's hopping and skipping, and he looks really good with his legs now.
Max, I think one thing that's worth noting here is Friday's a big day. Friday would be the 14th of May, which in 1981, you won your finals MVP and your first title. Do you remember 40 years ago?
Oh, I remember. I had a couple of helpers. Some kid named Bird, some kid named Mchale, and Parish, and Nate Archibald, all guys who were eventually going to be Hall of Famers. So yeah, I do. Opposition across from me was Moses Malone at that time, and Calvin Murphy, another Hall of Famer. So yeah, I remember that being 26 years old and running like a reindeer. I do remember those times well. Now, that was probably about, I'll say this, is probably about 75 pounds lighter, but, still running like a reindeer. It was a transition if you're relatively, if you're not a dumb person, you can see the changes in life coming. And my first, playing time with Larry was on the court when he was a rookie. I was in my third year, and I could quickly see that Julius Caesar had come to town. And my role changed with Bill Fitch being there. Told me that I was not going to be a scorer anymore. I was going to be a defender. And my first couple of days, my first day with Larry, I remember walking away and getting to and I was a very prejudiced basketball player at the time, and hadn't seen that many white guys could play. And he walked in the gym, and after the practice was over, I remember immediately going to the first black person I could see and say, you know what? This damn white guy could play. Say, God's a funny God. God didn't give me one of the best white players ever to play, but he gave me two of the all-time best to ever play together in Kevin Mchale and Larry Bird. So, and then I had, along with that, you have Dave Cowens, who I played against, who played with, and my first in the league was John Hondo Havlicek. So there were some guys in there who were not of color, who could play the game at a very, very high level. But this Bird kid was really special.
Still working, and there's the Bird. Could be Rookie of the Year and maybe Most Valuable Player.
He's also the leading scorer on the Celtics now, 21.5 points a game.
Trying to get the message out. I was just in such shock that I'd found this, this unbelievable guy playing ball. That I'm just thinking like, this is pretty serious. And ended up talking to him about it later on, and he laughs about it because I told the story at Larry Bird's retirement, told the same story about 20-footers raining down on me and walking up to somebody of color saying that. So he was it was a very special time for the Celtics to kind of get back on the top. And think about that team. We had been kind of at the bottom, and we drafted Bird, and he came in, and he was very much like Kevin Garnett, not just vocal, but he changed the culture of that team into a team that looked to pass first and instead of look to score first. And so when he came in and changed that, everybody kind of fell in line, and I had to be the one that was convinced more than anybody as his Robin. He was Batman, I was Robin, so I had to be the one a little bit more convinced, and I got on board quickly, and then everybody else kind of followed suit. Thing I like, Dr. Mike he's the gentleman who is not, he's short on words, but his words are just so dominant when he uses.
Like me.
We were doing a procedure. We're doing a little test run at his clinic the other day where they put me on like this machine, and you count up and down, and you have to do squats. So Dr. Tim takes me into Dr. Mike's office, and Dr. Mike says, "You know what? I don't know what them last four you did. I'm not them squats you did, but they weren't squats. They were knees." I was like, and Dr. Tim, he was encouraging me. He was like, "Man, you did really well." Dr. Mike shot me out of the water like, dude, you need some help. Mike, could you tell me what I was doing wrong in front of
the basic idea of a squat is you bend at the knees, and that we know that's part of the problem here. You came in for the procedure on your knees. But after maybe about 2 or 3, I think he was just bending at the waist and looking at the floor. There wasn't much squatting going on. But we have to give you some credit. You did get the robotics machine activities after your injection. That's difficult to do. We do like to do it the other way around. But I think I was visualizing a defensive position playing ball, and that wasn't it. You were just looking at the floor.
Mike, you should have caught me about 25, 30 years ago. I just showed you how to squat, thrust, and spin at that time. Right now, you guys are going to get me back to that position. And you are getting me back to position. And one of the things I'm loving about this, Nick, is I stay in a townhouse, and I have found out that it is getting easier. I have a 3-story townhouse. It is easier to get from the bottom to the top now, by just the fact that I'm able to flex my knees and bend and kind of get up there without the pain. One thing I always do, use my arms. I always, the UCLA track coach, when I went out there, he told me, so one way to do it is you always use your arms. Your arms, if you lift your arms, they lift your knees. And so I do that. I put that in, and also the fact that my knees have a lot more flexibility to them now and less pain. So it's become a lot easier to get up.
And I think too, what we're talking about is the robotics technology that we have in the practice, where we kind of do a pre-screen with all of our patients that are undergoing a regenerative medicine procedure. And my wife, Colleen, is our director of rehab. She's our physical therapist. So I know she had a great time picking on you when she was taking you through that. But what it really helps us, because we can look at that data and we can do those comparisons, and it really helps Colleen out tremendously, because then she can see how things are changing and she can make modifications in your rehabilitation after the injections, which Mike and I always say the future of healthcare is definitely within regenerative medicine, but it's a wonderful tool. It's making sure you get to the root cause of the patient's problem and, have a real specific protocol that you follow with physical therapy, chiropractic, physiatry, and traditional medicine, kind of all working together to make sure you're getting the best care possible. So we had a lot of fun watching you on that robotics, and the robotics is really important because it really gives us an idea of how you're progressing and how we can, switch things up for you to make sure that everything is going to be successful for you.
Yeah, Dick, they told me, it took me out in the hall, and they told me to walk. And so you walk down the hall, then you walk back. She said, "Is that the way you normally walk?" I said, "No, that was my Denzel Washington walk." So I had to go back out and walk my regular walk. So, and then they gave me some great things I love. These orthotics that I actually put in my shoes that kind of balance me out a little bit. So that's kind of helped, and they feel excellent. The procedure itself, and it's just been something that has been so good, and I recommend it to anybody. Matter of fact, I laugh because I did a Zoom call with Kimba, who had the same procedure. And I asked Kimba, I said, "Well, Kimba, does that mean that I'm going to be running and dunking again?" He said, "I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far." He said, "You're going to feel good, but you dunking and running again," he said, "you might want to back off that a little bit." So I'm cautiously optimistic.
There you go.
That's great. And, the audience too, and as we're kind of talking, casually about, your career and the treatment, let's get a little bit more specific and talk about what we're doing that's so cutting edge at Maragal Medical. We've got a couple of questions already, and this is great. So first question, what are the injections? Is this gel or cortisone? And Dr. Marciello, this is a great transition. So Max, I know you, when you were early on in your career and throughout your career, when a player got injured, and if your knees were bothering you, I think what the standard treatment protocol was. You'd see the team doc and you would get an injection of cortisone. But Dr. Marciello, we now know from the current literature and the science, that's definitely not the best option for you when we're talking about treatment for arthritis. So let's have you talk a little bit about what we're actually injecting. Let's give everybody a nice overall understanding about regenerative medicine.
Sure. And if we just think about make it simple in the aspects of trying to help arthritis really prevent it from forming. If we think about when there's damage to a tissue, if you got a cut in your skin, it's got to heal. So we're trying to provide tissue, the solution that will actually help repair something. So cortisone, which has been around for ages, it actually degrades the tissue. It is a great anti-inflammatory medicine. It's a steroid, and steroids reduce inflammation quite nicely. You get the inflammation down, the person feels better, they feel like it's a miracle cure, they get back out. However, it does degrade the tissue that it gets injected into. So when we look at regenerative medicine, we're actually trying to inject solutions harvested by different ways. So Kemba may have received maybe a different harvesting kind of aspects of getting the injection from bone marrow, or you can you obtain the solution from amniotic tissue or placenta tissue or umbilical cord. You can harvest these tissues, these solutions, to get actually restorative properties into the joint. And by doing so, we actually try to repair the damaged tissue, the wound, if you will. And by doing so, we actually prevent destruction. We imply that the body can actually take care of itself. We're not providing miracle cure. We're letting the body do the work by giving it the tools that it needs to actually help repair. So that's what we try to do. We try to make it simple in a sense of getting that person the right choice, getting that person some healing properties by giving it growth factors, by giving it anti-inflammatory processes to get the inflammation down and the repair processes up. And once that's done, the person can actually go forward and get that movement like you talked about, Max, just walking up the stairs, because now you can actually go through the more proper mechanics of range of motion. And doing so, it enhances the muscle tissue to get stronger, and it gains the strength and the range of motion that we need to actually enjoy function or restore function. And that's what we're really ultimately doing here. So Kemba may be right there a little bit. He's not going to get you back to playing when you're 30, 40, 50 years younger. But realities are, if we started sooner, you may create the longevity because you prevented it from destruction. And that's why we want to stay away from the cortisone. We don't want to degrade the tissue that it gets injected.
So you're telling me now that I since it's been over 35 years that a lawsuit is impossible now, huh? Is that what you're saying? I have no legs to stand on, literally. Okay, all right.
So to answer your question, Donna, this is a regenerative medicine procedure, and specifically for Cedric, we used an amniotic allograft that was harvested from donated placenta. It's completely safe. With our protocol, we're finding additional benefit with a secondary injection, usually about 1 to 2 months later, with a blood product from Cedric called platelet-rich plasma, or a PRP injection. And we just find that the combination of the two really helps in terms of the longevity of these injections. So we really want to make sure we're focusing on helping to repair the damage from arthritis versus destroying the tissue. But like we emphasized before, we also want to make sure that we're getting to the root cause of the problem. So Cedric talked about, some of the things that weren't functioning properly in terms of, his flexibility, his strength. We noted on his examination that he's got flat feet. So corrective orthotics definitely made a big difference for him as well. And he knows too, and what did we talk about, Cedric? What was the biggest difference between you and Kemba? And it's your age. So, the procedure with Kemba was definitely different, as Dr. Marciello pointed out. And that's the whole purpose of doing these injections is just, as I kind of joked with Cedric before, Cedric, remember I said, here you are at the prime of your life. And you said, what are you talking about, the prime of my life? I was back at the prime of my life. And what I meant by this is, you work so hard as a professional athlete and you attain all of these, incredible accolades and championships and all. And that takes a lot of wear and tear on the body. So you all know that, your professional career has a limit. And with all that hard work, your body has taken on a lot of that stress and things kind of wear down. So, you're going to be in the NBA for a period of time, but then you want to set yourself up for success to make sure physically you can enjoy the rest of your life and you can function. And, I pointed out to you, and you've seen him live as, Earl Campbell, those of you on the call that remember Earl Campbell, famous running back for the Houston Oilers, he can't even walk now just because the arthritis is so bad in his knees and a couple of failed surgeries. So that's the whole motivation.
Kevin Mchale, his ankles.
Yeah, there you go. And, I think too, putting together, this team approach and making sure you're getting to the root cause of the problem and utilizing innovative treatment options like regenerative medicine, or commonly known as stem cell therapy, is definitely the future of healthcare. So I know we have a couple of questions, including specifics about explaining the process.
Hey, can I join in here and tell them that, that on number 2, the last procedure I had, actually, and I had to go to my scientific hat here. They actually took blood from me, put it in a centrifuge, spun it around, broke it down, and it came out like a whole nother color. And then they inject that back into both my knees. And that is, almost like a great process. But that was the one thing I did learn from you guys the other day by just sitting down. Don't think I'm always just sitting there snoring. I'm actually, learning and putting some of this stuff in my mind as I go on.
There you go.
Absolutely. And like we said, that PRP injection, we found, because it has a lot of growth factors, it really helps to boost the stem cell injection as well. So you did really well with that. It's an in-office procedure. As you came to the office. I mean, we kind of did everything in 1 to 2 visits. So it was a lengthy process for you. But generally speaking, when we get a patient in for the injection, it takes about an hour or so. They can drive to their appointment. They can drive back home. And as you know, Cedric, in reality, it didn't impact your life at all. We just have you kind of take it easy for a little bit. But patients often ask us, am I going to miss time from work? Am I going to be laid up for a period of time? As you can attest, it's pretty straightforward. And we do it right in the office under diagnostic ultrasound guidance. And how painful was it, Cedric?
Should I ask the woman at the front desk? Should I talk about her, or should I? It really wasn't that painful. I think the first injections were in my knee were very simple. The second one on my left knee was again simple. It was more like when you go to the dentist and you say you're getting a pinch. Now the one in my right knee was a little bit more painful, because what the doctor actually told me that there was scar tissue in there from the arthritis. So he had to kind of probe through that, and it really wasn't a screamer, I'll say that, but it was some discomfort, but it only lasted until he finally put the injection in, and I got up and walked out, and they gave me some braces to put on my knee to help just kind of guide me along, and I've been wearing those. So there are so many good things that from this procedure that I have loved.
That's great. Couple more questions that we can ask. Is it covered by insurance? So right now we're starting to see, a change in the industry too. So we've had patients that have had this covered. As we all know on this call, every insurance company is different. So we're starting to see more and more insurance carriers pick the procedure up, but generally speaking, it's an out-of-pocket procedure. And this is a nice transition into the next question. Does this replace knee and or back surgery? So as Dr. Marciello will tell you, our whole goal at Maragal Medical, and you can find more information about the practice on our website, just maragalmedical.com, is surgery should always be the last option. So, we're not against prescribing medication. We're not against performing surgery, but it definitely should be the last option. And when you have a completely safe regenerative procedure that you can utilize, and if you're comparing that to a knee replacement surgery or a lower back surgery, it would definitely be, and it just makes sense, that if this procedure can help you avoid knee replacement surgery or back surgery, that's definitely the way you're going to want to go. Isn't that correct, Dr. Mike?
Yeah, and that's I would add, the concept is many times, especially we think about Cedric going through very high level function that really puts a lot of stress and strain to the joints. You're going to have that arthritis develop prematurely, perhaps much sooner than the average person just going through daily life activities. So part of this procedure is not only to try to prevent, no question we're trying to have a person avoid a replacement surgery. But if we can postpone that to a time that's much more likely that it's going to be better for you. If you get a joint replacement too early in life, you're not going to be able to have that joint replacement last forever. So if we're in that late 40s, early 50s, you're much too early. We're trying to buy time, and we want to keep that function going. So a regenerative injection can certainly restore some integrity to the joint and buy time. And it's definitely a two-way street here. One injection is not going to be a miracle to kind of get you 20 years. It takes some work on that person's part to keep the joint moving, do the work that Cedric's alluding to, going up and down the stairs and making sure that there's actually motion. But we are looking to try to restore function, and hopefully ultimately that person takes it on full steam such that you can avoid the surgery. But we are buying time as well. So we have to put in perspective of that person's age and the degree of degenerative arthritis that's present.
And Donna, too, there is a video. We actually just finished editing Max's whole journey at Maragal Medical. So you can see that on our website, in our Facebook page, maragalmedical.com. You can also see my video. I was the first patient in the practice to get a regenerative medicine injection in my shoulder. That's when Dr. Marciello and I, started talking about implementing regenerative medicine into the practice. So there's video footage of that too. And Alan, the average cost, it just varies depending on the body region that you need to inject. And it's based on the amount of volume of cells that we order from the lab. So I can give you a ballpark, like a one knee, arthritic knee, usually uses about 2 cc's of an allograft, either a Wharton's jelly or amniotic allograft, and that's about $5,100. The PRP injection, the secondary injection that Max had, is average cost about $1,300. So sometimes patients start with the PRP injection just due to the cost to see what the response is. Dr. Marciello and I have been seeing a lot of success in combining both injections, and we've done quite a bit. We're close to about 650 overall injections. And I think the greatest statistic is our patient satisfaction rate is in the low 90%. We've only had 38 patients that haven't responded to the injection, and most of our injections, or a big bulk of them, were done early on. So they're about 3.5 years post-injection after just injecting once, and those patients are still doing well. And we're part of a national group of medical clinics that do this procedure, and they have about just over 6 years of post-injection data too. So like we stress with our patient, not a magic injection, it takes work from the patient, and you want to make sure that you're at a facility that is utilizing a team approach, and you need to make sure that the docs are getting to the root cause of the problem and that the clinic is equipped to actually treat the patient. So we go through the typical treatment after the injection, and we take all insurances too. So the aftercare is covered by insurance as well. But it's a commitment. I always say it's like a part-time job for about 3 months, but it's a part-time job to get you your life back. And we just had a patient today that flew up from Texas, and we're coordinating her care, aftercare, back home as well. So it works out really good. And Nick, did we have any? It looks like we had some social media questions too.
Red was unique. He was one of those few people that, when you meet the first time, he's a legend. He was already legendary. Multiple, I don't know how many championships, just 11 championships, something crazy like that. Being with the organization as long as he has, and never really. Here's what Red never saw. Red never really saw color. What he saw was green. The only color he saw was green. That was money, and that was the green of the Celtics. And
money too.
He at all costs, he was trying to win. So like I said before, these numbers I have, these guys, there was their first starting in the NBA. These 5 guys were of color and started. That was the first time it ever happened, and it happened under Red Auerbach's watch. And it was, you think about how it is now, it's just a game. It's a game to play and a game to win. But I've told people about the history of the Celtics when this comes to race relations. Red Auerbach drafted the first black player. And so you think about it in that way. Chuck Cooper, he had the first black coach in Bill Russell, and he had the first starting black 5 in the NBA. So it wasn't about who it was about the guys doing the job. And so he changed the perspective of what the NBA was all about. I think things would have changed. You think about Larry Bird and Kevin Mchale, longevity of their careers. Robert Parish was one of the first people that I knew, and he played more games than anybody else, almost 20 years. He was one of the first players I knew that took care of his body during the off season. What they used to tell us was once the off season came, when you finish the season, they said, don't touch another basketball, get away from it for about 2.5 months, and then come back refreshed and don't lift any weights. Now, you think about it now, guys don't do that. You know, it's almost a year-round job. And the only thing I say about that, which probably deals with anything else, is the fact that I always say this: if you don't rest your body is going to rest you. So I'll even think about it this year, the number of games that the Celtics played and then came back, almost had about a month and a half, 2 months before the season started again. And some of these guys are going to go into the Olympics. You know, it's just going to be a long, hard grind. So load management is really key. And I think preventive medicine is just as important. When I look at these guys from Maragal, I think about what they talk about and the body itself, of just trying to heal the body and not put it through all the aches and pains. Our procedure, you love this one. Our team doctor at the time would come in, and your exam for the season was like this. Dr. Tim, Dr. Mike, you'll love this. This was the doctor would come in. He'd say, how'd you do? How was your summer? I said, good. All right, drop your pants. All right, cough. He check you for a hernia. Cough on the other side, check you again. All right, go get him, Tiger. And that essentially was the exam Dr. Tom Silver gave us during that time. There wasn't any preventive stuff. And that's why I think why guys' careers lasted as short as they did. And I remember people telling me when I first got in the league, they said, man, if you can play 10 years, then, that would be great. Now you look at a guy now, a lot of guys in their 10th year are just really starting to hit the sweet spot. And I'll add even further to what the doctors are saying about preventive medicine. Now, none of us are going to go this far, but let's talk about LeBron James. LeBron James is spending almost $1 million a year to keep his body in tune. And that's between physical therapy, that's between doctors, that's between what he eats. And none of us, I'm sure none of us regular peasants are going to do that. But it just shows the regimen that he goes through and why he's been so successful for as long as he has. And I keep thinking that Father Time is going to win. And every time I say that, LeBron James comes back with a knockout punch. But those are the keys to what you talk about.
So Donna had a good question. I didn't know if she wants to come on, but I can read it out. So because Dr. Mike, we hear this question all the time. So she says, you said the injections help the tissue. I'm missing cartilage, some bone on bone with a small meniscus tear. I just had a second cortisone shot and I'm starting PT this week. It feels better, but I want to avoid knee replacement until I really need it. So, that's a common misconception too, that, with the bone-on-bone arthritic change, that the regenerative medicine injections won't help if there's no cartilage. But when you talk about helping the tissue includes cartilage too. So we see this all the time in our practice.
That's right. And to put in perspective, when stem cell therapies and regenerative medicine really came on the street, the concept was very, very focused to think that we're repairing or regenerating cartilage. So we actually are trying to repair and help heal tissue that is damaged. So if you have, bone on bone, you've got some edge of that bone that's going to have some degenerative processes, and now we're going to take that to have some healing properties. We may not be able to grow cartilage all the way across the area where there's no cartilage at all, but it isn't just about cartilage, because again, the cortisone can actually break down that cartilage and make it worse. You would add more bone to bone by damaging the tissue that's your cartilage cells. So we're looking at the ligaments, the joint capsule, the integrity of the meniscus in the knee, all the different structures that are present, all can be inflamed, all can be broken down and have degenerative properties. And so we are looking at trying to help restore all of those tissues that are worn down repetitively or acutely traumatic. So it's not just about cartilage anymore. We have to recognize, talked about as much, but it's not to say that, well, you have no cartilage, you're bone on bone, you have to get joint replacement because regenerative medicine can't help you. No, that's not true. We just need to put the right perspective of mechanics, of bone integrity, of muscle integrity, and all those soft tissues that come along with it.
And at the end of the day, it's also about getting back to doing the things that you love to do, particularly now as we're coming out of, this pandemic where, as things kind of loosen up, you want to get, a little bit more active. And those patients with arthritis that are suffering, that's their main goal, is to get back into doing the things that they love to do, whether it's, playing golf, whether it's playing with your grandchildren, or whether it's going for a walk with your spouse at night on a really nice day. So that's really the key, is making sure that we incorporate all of these conservative treatment options and work together as a team to make sure that we're addressing the patient's goal in terms of quality of life. And it's an easy process. The consultation process, you just would call the office. You can go to our website with our contact information. We're located in Central Massachusetts, maragalmedical.com. You can see the address there in the comments. You call to make an appointment with Dr. Marciello. It's as simple as that. We'll verify your insurance. So the cost of that initial consultation, it's just a simple copay depending on your insurance coverage. And our front desk team will let you know the exact cost of that. Dr. Marciello will do your examination, and then we'll put together your care plan so that when you come back, we'll review everything from head to toe so that you, number one, know exactly what your problem is. And number two, you're going to know step by step on how we're going to attack it. And then number three, you're going to know how much everything costs in terms of, what your insurance coverage is. If you have a copay or deductible, if your regenerative medicine injections aren't covered, we'll let you know that, so that by the time you leave Maragal Medical, you'll have a solid plan of attack on how we're going to get you back to doing the things that you love to do. And that's really the key, is making sure, quality of life is there and utilizing the most conservative, treatment options that are actually helping to repair the damage instead of destroying tissue. That's the definite wave of the future. I think we can all attest to that for sure.
Everybody else, he was very, very intense. He was extremely, extremely opinionated. He taught me as much about basketball as he did about broadcasting. And just one of those guys who was just so interesting. I mean, he had walked me through the time when he was a rookie until his last game that he coached. And in the last game he coached, I happened to be on the team. I was a rookie myself. He was there with me for about 23 games until they decided to go into another direction with Sat Sanders. And then Tommy went into the broadcasting booth where he's become a legend. And, you're there and you get Tommy points and who Tommy was. And the thing about it, Tommy learned, as he said, he learned from the legendary Johnny Most, who was the radio voice for the Celtics for many years, when people would essentially turn off the sound of the TV and listen to Johnny Most. And if you did that, it looked like you were looking at two games, because it looked like the Celtics never fouled. They never not one foul the Celtics ever made. It was always the Celtics were getting the ugly side of the stick. But Johnny Most and Tommy came in the same way. It was always about the green. It was always about how bad the officials were. And I had, matter of fact, had one of the personnel from the one of the higher ups in the Celtic office one time told me, said, for my radio broadcasting, I told something that maybe the Celtics aren't good. Without Kevin Garnett, they won't win a championship. And they got mad. They were upset because I said this. And they said, we need you to be more like Tommy. There's no way you can be like Tommy Heinsohn. There's only one Tommy. And the way he looked at the game as a broadcaster today, you can't broadcast a game the way Tommy broadcast a game, because he saw it with green shades on.
And I have one more basketball question, Max. Who is your greatest rival in the NBA?
Wow. I always want to go back to my greatest rival. And I was thinking one day about writing a book about this. Is your rivalries always start when you're young, and the person that you had to beat to get over the top. I know you're a tennis player. Yeah. And it's always that person that you looked at. The first person I had to beat was actually my mother. My mother was a great college basketball player. She played at North Carolina Central. It was the time when women played just one end of the court, and she happened to be on the offensive end. So she had this hook shot. She had these moves. So when she was, I would say she was probably about 30. She had to be about 32, 33. I was about 13. We were out in the backyard playing one-on-one. So she was the person I had to get the first person I had to beat. My greatest rival in the NBA, guy I probably hated more than anybody. Gosh, there's so many, but I would say it was either Bernard King or I would say it was James Worthy. And I'd say Bernard King probably made me more mad when he was with the Knicks than anybody else, because, I made a comment. He was scoring against Detroit before we played him one year in the playoffs. He was with the Knicks. And I said, he ain't going to score 40 on me. So he came to the Boston Garden, and he looked at me, and you shake hands, and he didn't want to shake my. I said, well, it's on. First two games, we held him to 22 points and 25 points in the Garden. He went down to New York and went berserk. He scored 40, 42, 43 points and had the stat sheet, gave it to, I love this. He gave the stat sheet to a reporter. He said, you know what? Do me a favor. Take this down there so Maxwell can see it. Ooh, I was hot. And then the very next game, he came back and scored 40 again. So, he was one of the guys, along with James Worthy, that I probably said I hated, along with Magic Johnson. So there's so many guys that, I hated. But I'd say the Lakers, anybody who played on the Laker uniform, I actually hated them, although I was a huge fan of Kareem.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a wonderful opportunity, Max, and we really appreciate just all of the past stories and memories. And we certainly appreciate the fact that you had a chance to talk to the audience today about your experience at our clinic, Maragal Medical. For those of you that are out there, if you want information about our clinic, we're a physical medicine clinic located in central Massachusetts. We're easily accessible from all parts of the state. We have patients that travel from all over New England simply because we're doing some innovative treatment options. And we take most insurances too. You can certainly get our contact information on our website. Again, it's maragalmedical.com. And Max, we just really appreciate, just all of the specifics about, your process at the clinic and going through. Like you said too, we really tried to give you an education, and you definitely got an education because you talk about it with a great level of knowledge and all. And
Dr. Mike, by the time I get back there, I'm I'm hoping to improve on my squatting ability.
That's great.
All right. Well, thank
All right,
you,
guys.
gentlemen.
Well, thank you so much. And Max, we'll be in touch with you in another 30 days just to check your progress. And we've got some big things coming up too. We got, scheduling Dan Duquette on your podcast to talk about, upcoming baseball season. And we got a big event in the middle of June down in New Bedford with Doug Flutie. That'll be kicking off a documentary on former Boston, the band Boston, the drummer Sibby Hashian. So all of these opportunities too to just educate the public about what we're doing with our patients that are suffering with pain from arthritis and neuropathy. And we can't thank you enough, folks. We really appreciate it. It was definitely a thrill for Dr. Mike and I. And Max, we just can't say enough positive things about you. I really appreciate it. And Ainsley and Kylie wanted to make sure that I said hello to you as well too. So whenever I tuck Ainsley in, I see his basketball with the autograph on it, and we really appreciate that. He was on cloud 9 when he first met you. That was awesome.
All right, gentlemen, you guys have a good one. And for you listeners and viewers out there, this is the place to be. If you are having any kind of discomfort in those joints, I mean, it could be wrist, it could be neck, it could be back, whatever it might be. These guys are the professionals that you need to go see before you think about trying to, replace something. And I think these gentlemen will concur.
Yeah, that's great. We really appreciate it, guys. Have a great night. Max, we'll talk to you soon.